This is Real Learning with Real People. These conversations are with real people. They're unscripted and they're designed to pull tidbits of information from people who are grinding right now to get the most out of their lives. With minimum amounts of editing and maximum authenticity, we hope to provide lessons that anybody will find effective, relatable, and entertaining. We seek to have guests that provide learning that's based on their life experiences. Some are chosen because of their experience as high performers in sport, business, or education, and other guests have been chosen because they have meaningful lessons to teach, and I want to make sure they have the platform to share them with the world. The language in these videos is sometimes mature, as I'm always encouraging guests to just be themselves. This is all part of making sure that we do our best to give you content that is both authentic and effective, and that you truly feel like you can utilize the real learning and connect with these real people. Today my guest is role model Meredith Atwood, and I want to use some of her own words in this introduction. In 2010, she was out of shape, addicted to alcohol, seriously overweight, and lost in her own body, mind, and world. She found the sport of triathlon and had no idea what a life changer it would be. Triathlon did not solve all the problems. Little by little, though, she came over and through some big things, including quitting alcohol and the legal profession. She came to love triathlon because it showed her three amazing things about herself. These three things are inside the core of every person, and they just have to begin to believe that 1, they are relentless, 2, they are worthy, and 3, they are limitless. She founded Swim Bike Mom, which started as a blog to share her story with one reader, her mom. Little by little, it grew into a small forum, then a larger one, then a community, and sometimes a revolution. Her approach and philosophy to fitness and training has been groundbreaking, making fitness and even sport approachable and achievable for every person. 4 Ironman triathlons later, Meredith has traded in her bike shoes for a lifting belt and is getting back to her roots of strength training. Her new book, The Year of No Nonsense, is now available everywhere books are sold. While learning how to do a multi-platform show for the first time, here's my extremely raw and interesting conversation with Meredith Atwood. So, I guess for the Instagram live crew, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, because usually I do the introduction well before. Sure. And then we can do, I'll do my normal thing on the recording, but yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then I'll get into my normal interviewee kind of mode.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. I'm glad to be over on Instagram Live. It's always a pleasure to jump into the panic. So I like to test boundaries, and so it was fun. I'm Meredith Atwood. I'm better known as Swim Bike Mom, probably, even though I haven't done a triathlon in over 2 years. But I am the author of the book Triathlon for the Every Woman, and The Year of No Nonsense is my latest book. And I'm a life coach and the host of the Same 24 Hours podcast. I have a laundry list of uninteresting things about that I've done, but as of now, yeah, that's kind of, I'm focusing on podcasting and writing and coaching. So I'm glad to be a part of this. Cool.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. We've been trying to connect now for I guess well over a month or so. And it's been interesting to me. I've noticed that it's been easy to connect with some people, and it's been really hard to connect with others. And usually both are a fault of my own, regardless of which way it goes.
Oh yeah, I can see that. It's the follow-up and then the follow-up and then the follow-up, and yeah, totally. It's all good. We're here.
Yeah,
we did it.
100%. So we usually dive right in, and we talk a little bit about your background and a little bit about how you grew up and how you kind of developed your framework for life, which I really believe is a big part of developing your framework for learning. So tell us a little bit about what it was like for you growing up.
Yeah, so I grew up in the South, in Savannah, Georgia, and we actually just moved out of the South a year and a half ago. So I spent my whole life in the same state. I went from Savannah to Atlanta to Athens to Atlanta, and that was it. It's like within 4 hours. And so I had a pretty white bread, white life growing up, and it was pretty boring in a lot of sense. And then in a lot of ways, it shaped me because it was insanity. I mean, it was just, there's so many layers of my childhood and my past that just led to a hot mess express, turning the corner into college and into law school. So My parents they found religion when I was about 5. And it was a very cultish type church. And so that's my earliest sort of memory, was being in this crazy religious environment. Now, they'll say like, it wasn't a cult. And I'm like, it was totally a cult. And then they'll laugh, because I think now, like in hindsight, it's, you could probably call it a cult.
Right.
So I spent like 4 years in this super interesting version of Christianity. And so that was my upbringing.
Right.
Within that framework, I learned to really be afraid. I learned shame. I learned the power of sin. And so I remember, like, when I look back on it now, I can kind of feel it was very serious. Childhood was very serious to me. I always felt very heavy with the burden of life at like 8. I didn't really know how to have fun. And then I went to middle school, and I learned to have some fun, but church was always kind of hanging in the background. So I have a very complicated relationship with God at the moment because of it. And so, like, people from my past are like, "Oh, we're praying for you. We're so sorry." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm working on it. Like, it's good. It's fine. I have to go through this process," because so much of my childhood was wrapped up in it, and it was problematic, like a lot of aspects of it. And so
Right.
Where I'm at now is growing into that. But anyway, so very strict, very, very religious. But during that childhood, I found my sport of Olympic weightlifting. So I was an Olympic weightlifter, Olympic style weightlifter, to clarify. I didn't go to the Olympics for most of high school. And then I went to college and went to law school and gained a ton of weight. And with my second child, I hit 280 pounds. So that was fun. And
Wow.
that kind of takes us to, I don't know, age 30. I don't know how far you want to go, but the summary is childhood really shaped me in a lot of weird ways. And I don't like to get off on the trauma train, or I don't like to dwell in the childhood and the past kind of thing, but it was very shaping. That's where I learned kind of the body hate. That's where I learned shame. That's where I learned a lot of really messed up stuff. And so unraveling that has been kind of the mission of my adulting lately.
Wow.
Fun.
Okay. See, when I told you that it's usually pretty easy to spin off in a conversation off of that one question. There are a lot of people that answer like that, and not there's nobody who's answered the same way, but there's a lot of people who answer, and it's like, and you didn't think that we'd be able to spin off of that. Because
yeah, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to body shame? Do you want to go to alcoholism? Do you whatever? It's fine.
No, and I honestly probably all of it, but I do want to start with what's your relationship like with your religion now? Because I've had a few different people on the show who are what I would describe I guess as openly very religious. I am not that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do, if I had to pick a religion, I think I would probably try and go down the road of creating my own, where it's just trying to learn a bunch about as many of them as I can. And that's kind of where I've decided to sit. And ironically, I think that follows the values of quite a few of them. But what's your relationship like now with religion?
Well, religion is where I kind of get complicated. So I think because of the childhood I had and the relationship to the church, I rejected it. Like, I just kind of put God, religion, Jesus, all of it in a box and like put it under the bed with the empty wine bottles. I was like, I'm just going to not do this, And so what I've learned in sobriety, I'm 4.5 years sober and really working on and there's a fly flying around here, so if I'm swatting, that's what it is. But I'm working on this whole idea of emotional sobriety that comes along with being, physically sober. And so with that sobriety comes the idea of the higher power. And so it's forced me back to kind of my roots. Like, what do you really believe, and where do you fall with your belief system? And it's been humbling, because I do know that I have to come to terms with my spirituality. And so where I'm at right now is I absolutely believe in God. I think God, as I believed in him growing up in the cult, not a cult, was a very fearful, very vengeful God. And so the focus that I have now is how do I turn my spirituality and my sense of religion into a loving version, like the God that so many of my friends know. Like they find comfort in their version of God and their Jesus and and that's not my vision of it. That's not what I felt as a child. I felt very scared. Like if I mess this up, I'm going to hell, and that's terrifying. You know, it's very terrifying as a 5-year-old, because that's when it started for me. And so I'm having to figure that out. And that's where I'm at. So I don't know where I fall. I have 2 children that I want to be free thinkers and decide for themselves. And so we talk very openly about it. And I'm just kind of muddling my way, because I know that rushing to something out of guilt has gotten me nowhere. It's gotten me weight gain, shame, an alcohol problem, a career that I didn't like. All sorts of things have come out of shame, and I'm not going back there. And I'm not going back there for fear. I'm not going to go to God out of fear. I'm going to go to God out of love. And so it's going to take me a minute, and I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But I'll figure out where I fall. But I do believe in God. So don't pay, not everyone who knows me from the past. I mean, keep praying for me. I'm glad you do. Thank you for praying for me. But keep your hell talk out of my Instagram feed. It's fine.
Yeah, you can dump that on mine. That's okay. I'm sure somebody will send that my way.
Yeah, it's fine.
Well, I think,
but I mean, there is a real thing with spiritual trauma. And so I think that is a trauma that's not talked about very often, because, and so that's what I'm dealing with. Like, if you really want to break it down, it's like, oh, there's some spiritual trauma there. When you're scared of God and you live your life based on that fear, it's a trauma. So I've got to recover from that. And then I'll be back to, so give you a breath.
Yeah. And I would definitely say, again, as somebody without a particular denomination or following, that I really try and stay in my lane as much as I can because of that. But I also do openly express, like, I believe that there's something bigger than me. I haven't really decided what I think that is yet. And one day I will. Yeah. Sooner or later, I'm going to connect with that and sort that out. And I'm just not there yet. I think karma is definitely an aspect of it for me. That's for sure. I do think that's one of the pieces that I can really identify with, is the idea of karma, and
it appears to be. It appears to be.
So, but I'm interested because I don't talk about this a ton on the show, not for any particular reason, but my younger sister, she's in her mid-20s. She is in recovery and finally doing quite well for a very serious eating disorder. And that actually, one of the ways that I originally connected with your stuff was through her, somebody that she was connected to through social media, posting about your book, me looking up your book, me connecting to you, and that sort of thing. Yeah. So let's go down that road a little bit. Let's go down the road of what I guess I would say, questioning how you feel about your body, and what was that like for you?
There was a little bit of a burp. Questioning about how I feel about my body growing up, or growing up.
Go wherever you want with
it. Okay. Well, today, I would say today in this very moment is probably the healthiest I've ever been in relationship to my body. And I don't mean like this is the thinnest I've ever been. It's not. I don't mean that it's the best cardiovascular. No, none of that. The healthiest relationship I have to myself is probably today, ever, so, and I'm 40. So it's taken me 40 years. And when I say a healthy relationship, I don't wake up and I'm like, oh, I love my body. I just have so much love for this vessel that no, I'm like, you're fine today. That's my version of self-love. It has taken me a long time. So around the childhood, I was, I look back at pictures of myself, and I was certainly not a twig. I was not a small kid, but was I, fat? I don't know. I don't think so. Like, I wish I was as fat as I was in 6th grade,
Yeah.
but from a very young age, I had a real sense that there was something wrong with my body. And it took me growing up and getting to like 38 before I kind of unpacked that. And I realized that by the time I was like 18, so many people had commented on my body in all sorts of shape and form. Like, because I was a competitive weightlifter. So, you know, if I was cutting a weight class or gaining a weight class, the weight was an issue. People that didn't, you know, this ties back to the church a little, people that shouldn't have been commenting on my body at church were commenting on, you know, and so it was very complicated. So body, and then attached to sex and attached to religion, shame, like just bleh. Sexuality, boobs, all of it, just shameful. So there was that tied to food. You eat too much of it. Why are you so hungry? Why are you so chubby? Here, join Weight Watchers. Maybe this will help. It was just a mess. Gotcha. Like, it's just a mess. It was a hot mess. And so I am careful to not go down the, blame my childhood path. But at some point you have to go, yeah. Let's connect these dots. Got it. You know, because I grew, you know, I graduated high school and I went to college and I tried to literally kill myself in many ways. I tried to drink myself to death. I tried to eat myself to death. And then at one point I had a trigger warning, a suicide attempt. All of this because I just wanted to disappear. And I didn't know at the time I was trying to disappear, but there was so much shame in me. And so much of it was tied to my body. Like, how can I just destroy this or numb it? So, you know, you think when you have a drinking problem, like, I have a drinking problem, and you stop doing that, it's going to fix it. This was a shame problem. This was a shame problem that then turned into a food problem. As a kid, I was a binge eater because food was held from me because I was chubby, regulated. And so anytime I could get my hands on, I ate for tomorrow. Like, I better eat for tomorrow because I don't know, you know, what's coming next. So I learned early to binge. I never was a purger. I never was an anorexic. And this is a bad eating disorder joke because I couldn't do it. I mean, I tried to not eat, but I was a failure at that. And then talk about a crazy hate loop when you're not able to purge and you can't stop eating. You're like, you can't even be anorexic. Like, how bad do you suck? Like, and that's the kind of thinking I had. Like, I'm just such a failure around my body. And so, you know, never mind the fact I ballooned up to 280 pounds with my second child. I spent a lot of time in the 220 to 250 range when I was drinking. And it's just been a battle. It's been a battle. But what I've learned is that is just a symptom. It's a symptom of not dealing with the underlying trauma. It's a symptom with not dealing with the pain, my relationship with food, because the way we do our bodies is the way we do life. And that sucks. Like, when you look at that, it's like, so I'm like wearing this on I'm wearing my pain outside today. Am I? Because I look like, and that's not a judgment. That's just our relationship to our body, our relationship to ourselves is how we're kind of doing everything. And so I had to recover from that. And this is very new. I mean, it's daily. It's, don't leave me alone in a room of ice cream. Not that I would ever have that opportunity, but what a great room that would be. But I still don't trust myself very much with food. And that's because I just got messed up in the beginning. And then it became a way I numbed out. And so all of that to say that recovery, I think, especially, it takes on different layers. And I talk about that in my book. Like, you have to keep peeling the truth onion until you figure out what started it all. And you'll find, like, if, you know, at my core, I'm an addict. I'm just an addict. Whatever I can do to excess, I'm going to go do that. If I can, you know, I mean, stupid stuff. If I can read 10 magazines, I will. Instead of, like, one's not enough, I got to go to the bookstore and get 10 of them. It just doesn't matter. I'll do everything to excess. And that's either, and I haven't really connected where, you know, is it genetic? Yeah, probably. Is it because I want to numb out? Yeah. I don't want to feel. Yeah. All these things. So working through that and the relationship to food and booze is part of this healing process. And I'm still working on it, but the body thing is super complicated. Summary, super complicated.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and we work a lot in that world, a lot of the mind body cycles and connections and good things and bad things that you can really pull from in that. And I'm interested in your journey to just because I think that it's a powerful tool for yourself, and but probably a powerful tool to, if anybody can pick up on it, your journey to being able to talk about it. Like
Yeah.
the way that you speak about it now, I'm going to assume is not the way that you were speaking about it 15 years ago.
Or 5,
Yeah.
or 2 months. Like it's
Yeah.
that kind of, yeah, it's that kind of a journey. I think there's very much, and I was talking about this earlier on a podcast today on my own show,
Mm.
how my family, so my maiden name was Nesbitt. They said that the Nesbitt women had a curse. They called it the Nesbitt curse, and we were all heavy. And so I remember being at my grandmother's house like 4, 5, 6, 7, and then being like, "Oh, you got the Nesbitt curse," and I'm like, "I do? What is that?" And then I'm told, and I remember thinking, "Oh man, like what a bummer." And then I remember they would talk about my other grandmother, that she had these like fat knees, and they called her name was Mambo, and they're like, "Oh, you have Mambo knees," and I'm like, I have Meredith knees. But I remember thinking, okay, so I have these like horrible knees and I have a curse. Sweet. Like where do I sign up? And so when you start your life, and this is where like all the parents of the world are like, "Oh God, we're just screwing
Yeah.
them up." Yeah, we are. My kids will write a book about me. It's fine. I'm totally screwing them up. But the roots of that, I mean, so to answer your question, I always go like way around.
Right.
How did I process it? How did I talk about it? Well, for 25, 30 years, I was like, well, I have this curse. So I blamed my genetics.
Yeah.
When you think things are a certain way and you believe them, you look for evidence to support it. Oh, there's my other family members who struggle with weight. Oh, look at my Mambo knees. And there's your evidence. It's like, well, I'm going to be this way. This is who I am, how I am. And I don't care what you weigh. Just be happy with what you weigh. And I never was. So it's like you're fighting this belief that you're going to always be this way, and you're trapped. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm trapped in this body. I've got this curse. How terrible is this? How do I get out? I can't get out. Oh, I'm just going to be drunk. And so processing that and learning to talk about my weight in a way that's not self-deprecating, I still don't do really well,
Right.
but in a way that's like, I don't really want to be trapped in this version of myself. I want to write my own story. I want to set goals that matter to me. Like, I don't care what the world says about body acceptance or media says about being thin. I don't care about that. I care about what I want to feel and what I want to look like. And so that's kind of my crusade. And it clashes sometimes with my past. It clashes with my audience, because a lot of it is about body acceptance at any weight, any stage. And I get that. Look, I started fitness very heavy. And if I hadn't started it very heavy, there's no perfect time to start. You should always do what you need to do to take care of yourself. But sometimes there's this resistance to wanting to change and wanting to get better. But that may not be coming from someone who didn't have a curse bestowed upon them. Like, I am on a mission to crush that. Like, I'm on a mission to like get 100% control over my body image, because I spent so long under this feeling that I can't. And I just woke up one day. It was probably 2.5 years ago. And I was like, this is garbage. It is garbage that I think I can't change my body, because all you got to do is go on the internet and see people who have. And
Yep.
what is so special about them? I go do Ironmans, I go have babies, I write books. Like, why can't I not eat Twinkies?
Well,
So that's like the question, like, why?
I'm sure a nutritionist would tell us both about 700 reasons why we can't eat Twinkies, but that's not necessarily the reason that we care about in that moment.
Right.
And I think that that right there, because you probably get a decent amount. I think anybody who operates in the world that you operate in now, with the stuff that you're writing about, the stuff that you talk about, probably gets a decent amount of hate. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Fair.
and I think that to a certain extent we all do. As soon as you put your face and your words out there, there's statistically there's just no way that there's 6 point whatever billion people or 7 point whatever billion people are going to agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting probably part in itself, I would guess, where you said about 2.5 years ago you made this shift just in terms of how you approached it, but then there's the shift in terms of how everybody approaches it now that you're really kind of chucking it out there for them.
Right. And it's hard. I mean, I grew up a people pleaser, and that is one of the things I talk about in my book is as nonsense. I realized like I can't be living my life for what people think. I'm not going to live them for likes. I'm not going to live it for follows. But it's hard because we want at our core for people to like us, and we're scared if we show them who we really are, they're not going to like us.
Yeah.
And you know what? That sometimes that's true, because I showed them who I really was when, Ahmaud Arbery was killed. I decided I was done being quiet on my social media, and I showed them who I was, and people were like, "Oh, we don't like you anymore." And I'm like, fine. The fact that you thought I was someone else makes me ashamed that I didn't speak up sooner, because I wasn't very clear. I should have been clear. I should have been clearer, and so that coming to and I saw it on Matt Frazier. He's a CrossFit champion, I guess 3-time now. He said, I don't, and I'm paraphrasing, you can scroll on his Instagram, but something about, don't accept criticism from someone you would not accept advice from. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Game on. Like that. And every time you can think of something like that, it shoots you to the next level. When you're like, would I take this fool's criticism, or would I take this fool's advice? No. So why do I care what they think about me? And you're like, oh, okay. So check that box, moving on. And that's, I've been putting myself out there on social media. Like August it'll be 10 years in August, actually 13, but 10 years with this blog, in this world. And so it's taken me 10 years. So you can pull out Robert Greene's mastery book, and he talks about 10,000 hours or 10 years of work. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm finally a social media master. It took me 10 years to not care what people think and to just speak my truth. Yeah. So people are in this world, I worry about with my kids growing up, like it was so, you're younger than me, but we had a really long phone cord. And
I did have long phone cords,
but that was it. Like, and you just sat on the phone with your friends, and I just, how people will crap on you on social media. Like you just didn't have, I guess people used to be mean in person, and that's the difference. I don't know which is worse.
You're just a lot less brave. You're less brave face to face. That's for sure. Yeah. And I think I don't envy, because it's not going to get easier. Like social media is not going away. If anything, it's going to get shorter and faster and harsher. And so I don't envy parents, but I really don't envy the kids, because the thing that I look back on is like how many of those little quips and chirps that might happen to you during the day while you're at school, but then you go home and it was gone, and usually everybody would have forgotten about it by the next day. But now it's like those little quips and chirps and everything, they follow you. Like you might hear it verbally at school, but then you get home and it's on your Facebook, or somebody sends you a message on Instagram. And I think that's still the gap that we are really doing a poor job of, in my opinion, as adults, especially adults who lead kids, of making sure that we address the just like 24-hour a day, 7-day a week barrage of bullying. And I think that's the thing that scares me for my future kids, and for really young kids now, and even past that. It's just like, what can we do about that round the clock. You can't get away from it. You might not even look, but you hear your phone vibrating and you know what it is. And
Yeah.
I think that that's a whole other thing.
It is. And I think that my kids are young enough where, they have electronics, but like they turn in their stuff, period. Like at night, you don't have it. I have Google Wi-Fi. I turn off everything. Like,
yeah.
And so I don't know why parents of the world, or at least in your time zone, aren't getting together and being like, night, 10 o'clock. Everyone in your town turns their kids' stuff off and you turn your phone in.
Yeah.
Like, why are we not doing that? Like, do you really think your kid is doing anything productive after 10 p.m. on their phone?
Yeah.
Like, can you please answer that question to me? And, I have friends that, they're like, well, the kids just they fall asleep on, and I'm like, what? Like, no. And it's not judgment, but I'm judging you. Like, get a hold of yourself. I really am, because, my daughter, she's 11 and I've woken up and her phone is in her room and I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And she found it. I know that by the time I have teenagers, there will have to be, a lockbox in the bottom of the ocean, in the lockbox, like Social Security, that Al Gore skit from 100 years ago. Like, there will have to probably be a locked box.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fine. I'm locking your stuff, because you're not gonna be on the internet till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough, I think, because where I see it is because we work more with business now, especially now, but when we're in schools and we're working with schools, we see it a lot in terms of just us trying to get that growth and that goal setting and that pursuit of excellence and high performance, that kind of stuff. Just start to instilling those in kids, because, as you know, a big part of that is starting to dig into some of the fear and dig into some of the self-doubt and the shame and that kind of stuff that they might be feeling, that's stopping them from trying to achieve bigger things. And
I think that, and if I can add something, because I didn't mention this from my childhood, one of the things that I was not permitted to do, and my parents would disagree with me perhaps now, but I felt I could not express my emotions. I couldn't I could express happiness, joy, fun, frivolity, gratefulness, gratitude. I could express those, but there was a box of emotions: anger, rage, disappointment, fear. Those were not permitted emotions in our house, and you certainly could not express them toward your parents.
Yeah.
And what that does, that suppressed emotion, is what, like, when you talk about performance, like, if you don't have a kid who's able to process those emotions, like, how are they going to perform in a sport when they've never known how to express fear? Like, they're going to, crumple, or they're going to turn it inward. And then that's how you have addict behavior, because the addicts, we don't know what to do with that. Like, when you're not allowed to express it, you're like, okay, I can't express this. Oh, that really hurts. Let me just numb.
Yeah.
And so that's where you get this, like, pile that comes, totally, later. So I think as parents, and I have this, and this is, I'm sure psychologists would be like, no, this is bad. But we have this rule in the house that, our kids can say whatever they want to say. Legit. Like, they need to do it respectfully. Like, you're not just going to rage on me. But if they're angry, I want to know it. Like, why are you angry at me? Yeah. And my daughter, she's good at it. She will say, like, you were unfair. You were this is how you spoke to me. And they talk. They express their rage. They express their emotion. And sometimes it's hard to swallow, but I'm so much happier knowing, and I feel like it's healthier, that they're not bottling it. And so maybe I'm swinging wildly to the other side, and that's going to be another ball of wax. But I think that's where the danger is. Absolutely.
And I think you mentioned Ahmaud Arbery, and I never mind giving attention to any of that kind of stuff that's definitely going on. A little bit. I'm not saying that racism and everything that has happened is only going on in the U.S., but I think the length of time and the degree is different than what we're experiencing here in Canada. and we experience it with different races than you as well, and that's an important thing for us to acknowledge is our First Nations people, and learn more about that kind of stuff. And I think anytime we're talking about the idea of expressing emotion and expressing feelings and stuff like that, and how not being able to really holds you back, that's a race conversation too. And and I've had that conversation with people in the context of some of the racism conversations I've had recently, where it's like, it doesn't mean that person has ever been treated unjustly by a cop. It doesn't mean that they've ever had like a big. I really love how Dr. Michael Gervais articulates trauma as being big T and little t, and he's got some clearer criteria than that. But really, it's like big T trauma is like the really big stuff: death, disaster, destruction, that kind of thing. And little T trauma is the stuff that kind of eats away a little bit at a time, or builds up over time, or is smaller. And I think that. And I'm hoping that maybe by chance he'll happen to watch this, because every once in a while he pops on and sees some of my stuff, and he can answer the question for me. But I would imagine that for people of different races, people who are struggling in a religious setting that doesn't necessarily support what they're thinking and feeling on the inside, those inabilities to express the way that they actually feel and the things that they actually want and that kind of thing are very much little T traumas that build up and then hold them down over their lives. And the whole narrative of, well, nothing big has ever happened to you, like none of that really quote unquote really racist stuff has ever happened to you. It's like, yeah, but if you speak to that First Nations person, as we refer to them here in Canada, or you speak to that black man or woman, and I could go on and on about what they've thought or felt and haven't been able to say, that's where some of the conversation is for those people as well. So just because there hasn't been a big T trauma doesn't mean the little T ones haven't built up.
Right. And, one of the things that I experienced is complex post-traumatic stress disorder and CPTSD. You're dealing with repeated trauma, maybe little t, but it's a trauma that you can't escape from. And it happens over and over and over and over again until the impact might as well have been a big T, because you've just repeated it. And I can see how that would segue with microaggressions, with racism, with just, not fitting in. Like that just becomes a repeated thing over and over and over again until, it rises to this level. I mean, there's so many layers to the race discussion and privilege. But for the problem I'm having with the whole situation is that people like me, who are clearly privileged just by the color of our skin, are having trouble understanding what the problem is. That's where I just kind of disconnect and go, are you a robot? Are you an alien? Cause I don't think you're human. If you don't see at least part of the problem, you don't even get it. None of it, you don't get it. I'm like, oh, you're just not real. You're just not real. Wherever you fall under belief about it, but how can you not as a human being say, I believe that your experience could have been traumatic. I do believe that your experience could have been a problem. And I do believe that might have set you back in life. Why are we missing that? Why are there human beings out there in 2020 who are missing that? That is my concern. And I don't know what to do about it. But it plagues me at night. I'm like, how is this? How?
I think too that it's even just in moments like you and I acknowledging that it's kind of a little messed up that we're having this conversation. We're both sitting here as two privileged white people, and we're really missing something. And I don't know. I did see on the Instagram version of this that organization that I'm hoping to partner with, so maybe they are still listening, they can take that subtle poke. They're really about conversation around it, and really about they've got a couple products, and their products go to causes. It's not a for-profit, but it's about starting conversation. And I think that that's a really interesting it's not only interesting, but important thing that I see is that, and I'm not trying to put us on a pedestal further, but there's not very many white people that want to sit on a camera or in front of other people and say that we don't know what the heck it's like. Like
No.
And
No.
I don't know why. I don't know why so many white people think that it's not like it's a shot against you to say that you don't know. Like I was just talking to someone later today on an interview about the fact that we're going to be doing this show and learning live on the show. Like that's what the show is where there's literally complex topics or maybe even simple topics to some people, and we pull them out of a big drum and we learn about them on the show. And one of the things that we're talking about is privilege and separately the entire Black Lives Matter movement and all that kind of stuff and learning about it. It's like, why won't you just sit there and look at somebody and say, I need to learn about that? Like, I don't know enough about it, or I don't know anything about it.
Right. Or this makes me uncomfortable, or this makes me angry. And I think it goes back to like these individuals who are having trouble with this, with even talking or listening, and, you know, term it what you want, right? White fragility, whatever, that'll make you run. But, you know, this feeling that to talk about it means that you're giving up something.
Yeah.
Instead, and you're not. Like, that's what I'm struggling with so much. What do I lose by saying I don't understand and I want to understand, and oh my gosh, this is terrible. Can you just say like, this is terrible? Like, let's say that. And then, you know, look around you and just soften your heart a little bit and say, oh my gosh, I could have been born a different color and my life could be completely different. And my, you know, if you want to go to my Instagram, look on my Instagram TV and scroll down a little bit, I have an interview with Brianna Belser. She's my cousin. She's Black. We are family and we have a lot in common, like in genetic, like the way we are is really fascinating. But she grew up with a different skin color, and her experience of life, totally different, 100%. And we are family. You know, and so if you can't see that, and I was talking to a friend yesterday and I said, you know, I came out hot and heavy on social media in favor of Black Lives Matter, in favor of, you know, equality, whatever, just I'm listening and I want everyone to know where I stand. And I said, maybe I shouldn't have come out so hot and heavy because I did lose a lot of followers, which is an opportunity to maybe influence in a way that I would have preferred versus just being like, go away.
Fair.
And I said, you know, maybe if I had led with the interview with my cousin, maybe people would have understood what this means. Because like, hey, Meredith and Brianna are related. They're blood, and one's brown, one's white, and what, you know, here's a different world. And I'm like, I don't know if it would, because I feel like there's a fundamental block, and until someone figures out what that is, and they've called it white fragility, they've called it privilege, they've called it racism, ignorance, like whatever. But for some reason, people of our skin tone who are born into privilege are not willing to hear that it was hard for someone who just didn't happen to have the same color. That this is not, that walking into a room with this skin tone is not automatic privilege. And I don't know what we can do to make that visible or available or understandable, because that's where my main struggle is. And I'm like, I would just need to figure out what it is. Is it a vitamin?
Yeah.
You know? Are we missing like an essential amino acid that if we all had it, we would understand?
Well, and I've used the thing that, and it's unfortunate, like you said, that it's so hard to just even communicate about it, even in groups, like all white conversation where
that's the worst. That's where
like,
you get killed.
Yeah. Like it's, and that's the thing that I've found connects with some of those people is, and I use those people, I'm probably going to get hammered for that.
Not for white people. White people can say true. Those people.
Yeah. So those white people that I'm talking about is that I often use the same conversation about like gender equality, gender rights, and that kind of thing, where when women were trying to get the right to vote, it was like this big discrepancy with guys, it doesn't mean you don't get to vote anymore. Like, you'll still get to vote. They'll just get to vote too. It's not like there's only a limited number of votes, and the women are going to vote. Now half the men aren't going to be able to vote anymore. Like that, and for whatever reason, people that's the conversation around equity in employment and stuff like that for women starts to connect some dots. It's like, hey, if we start to pay attention to the fact that people who aren't white don't have the same opportunities, and we give them some more, it doesn't mean that we're going to start going up to white people and taking opportunities away.
Correct. So, it's not a pie. And that's where I talked on several podcasts with my Black friends. I'm like, it's not a pie. And they're like, yes, everyone gets their own pie. Like, it's not a pie. Like, we're not divvying out pieces. Like, you get a pie. Everyone gets a pie.
Yeah. Ironically,
on the
Oprah
start line. Oprah. My favorite human. But, another analogy that I got, and this made a lot of sense, I think, when I've had some discussions with people that were willing to discuss it, some white friends, is, and I have to credit my friend Latrice Kabuya, her husband came on, and actually I was on her podcast, I don't know, it was an interview anyway. He came on and he said, look, the best way to describe it is we're all running a race. You guys had a 50-yard head start. All the same opportunities have suddenly opened up. Ready, set, go. We're on the start line, but we also have a lot of baggage to carry too. So sure, everything in 2020 is fair, quote, equal, quote, but we're 50 yards back and we're carrying lineage and trauma and that just happened, and the white people for the most part are all into being like, well, that was so long ago. And then oh, have mercy. If you start really looking at the timeline of all this, it's like your parents.
Yeah. It's not that
like
long
my mom was in, school when they integrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was yesterday. And so all these positionings that we do to be like, oh, but slavery ended, 100 years ago. No, it's not like that. Like, let's really be real about it. And you're right. It's like, how do we position it so when everyone wins, everyone wins? Not when only white men win, then the world is like, no. And I know that, like, to divvy it up into gender and to class, that there's all sorts of different privilege. And I think we have to talk, able-bodied, like there's a million types of privilege, but the white male, able-bodied, upper middle class, like, that's all the privileges. Like, it's all of them. Like, there's no greater privilege than being able-bodied, white male, straight, cisgender, I guess is the right term. So if you have all those are considered privileges. And so when you have to break down the privileges, but I do think that it will help relate, like you said, with gender, but sometimes white women are the worst, like, for a lot of reasons.
I always, whenever you start the conversation about white privilege, I do, even though I'm in Canada, I do love to point people just in the direction of the U.S. Senate and start, and not just looking at a photo of it, though. If we did look at a photo, the Republican side is quite a bit different looking than the other side is, and this is coming from somebody that doesn't have a vote or doesn't have a horse in the race. But the other thing that's interesting to me is the length of term in government, and this is not just in America, so I'm not coming at it from my northern perch here, but you look at the length of term for white men in government worldwide, and it's pretty big.
It's forever.
Like, and now it's a little skewed. Like, there's some outliers because you do have like monarchs in Europe and that kind of thing where nothing was going to happen to take them down. So it was just 80 straight years of them being the king. And and you have some of that kind of stuff. But you do have democratic societies sense where it's like, wow, you've really stuck with that white male in power for X amount of decades, hundreds of years in some cases. And I think it's an interesting, it's interesting to me just because I do think that it's the issue of race, the issue of women's rights, gender equality, LGBTQ rights and all those conversations, it does bring me back to fear, because my friends who are not what I would describe as scared, as people who don't look like them, don't come from where they came from, don't often seem to have a problem with any of that. And the people who, when we have conversations about different races, different sexualities, different cultures, when we watch a show like Homeland and they start talking about all those people, and that's how they are over there, like that kind of stuff. And it's like, do you, like, have you ever known someone who's Arabic or someone Muslim? And it's like, well, no, but I know what happened September 11th. It's like, well, okay. Yeah. Like, people, if the only way that every non-white person judged white people was on what happened during slavery and what happened during colonization, then we deserve to be on pretty raw end of the stick too.
Right.
So like you can't sit there as a white person and say, well, this one moment in time, I'm going to judge you. I'm going to judge an entire race on it. And at the end of the day, though, it does just come down to like, yeah, I was really scared that day. It's like, okay, I get it. Like everybody was scared.
Yeah, it's fear. I mean, it certainly is. It's fear of change. It's fear of the unknown. It's fear. It's fear, but fear has driven power and oppression, and it will continue to be that way. And I might be joining you on your perch come November, because I just, if this leadership doesn't change, like deuces, like, you know, and I say that, but I'll be here, but
I was going to say, you're not going to love the climate difference between Canada and Georgia.
I'm not in Georgia anymore. I'm in Massachusetts. See, I'm getting up.
Oh,
I moved. So I was in Georgia. We moved to Massachusetts last year. So I'm like close to Canada now. I hear. Gotcha.
It's because anytime I hear anybody from Georgia talk, I'm just enamored with the accent. Like it's an unreal accent.
I don't really have it that much anymore though, do I? Do you still hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Well, I hear you're Canada, so there.
It's not a bad thing. Now, and like I said before, like, I don't know how many times on here, we started out talking about family and upbringing, and then we got into a whole thing. And I'm glad we did, because now, don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of guests on the show where I thought that we might end up having a conversation, especially during current events. And we haven't. No offense, but I didn't pick the triathlete white mom to be the one where we dive really deep into race. But I do want to talk a bit about, not so much a plug, but kind of a plug. I want you to plug your book, because it's a good book, and it's an impactful read. I've took it as an impactful read, especially for young women, and as somebody who's coached a lot of young women, I think that it's something that can really have impact on their life. So.
Yeah, so the most recent book is The Year of No Nonsense, and it's available where you love your books, Amazon, local bookstores, audio, ebook. But yeah, it's a story about how to get over, it's a self-help book for how to get out of your own way and on with your life. And it has a lot of memoir to it. I tell a lot of my story, but at the end of the day, we are up to us, and that is a hard truth. And so it's about kind of the process that I've been through to get my head out of the sand, or your head out of wherever it is, and learning to tell your truth and to make changes that you want to make. Like this is your life, and you do want to change things, or you wouldn't be like scrolling the internet for the latest whatever to change your life, the career, the whatever. So it's a book about getting rid of nonsense, which is kind of the buzzword I use for the things that we don't like to be doing that we're doing, and why are we doing them. And so if you dub it nonsense, you can name it and you can deal with it. And so that is the whole point. The whole point is like identify what the situation is, what you want to change, call it nonsense, and then create a plan to change it. And so it's really, really helped me, and hopefully will help other people. What is You Man or Patties? What does that even mean on Instagram? Okay.
I hope it's something negative, just so we can talk about it.
Well, I do want to talk about it, because you man are patties. There is like none of those words string together for a sentence. Let's play. Come on,
Yeah.
John Bibbs 73636. Idiot. I hope that's not, maybe it's a compliment. Thank you.
I was gonna say, like, we could take it like, yeah.
I am a fine, like, whatever, Patty. What if it is a compliment? I'm sorry if you are, but I don't think you are. I don't think you're complimenting me. You got a hater. You made it.
I wish I could say it was my first. No,
a wag one. You're stupid. You're stupid. You're stupid. Bye. Can you block him? I can't.
Do you know what that means?
No. This person doesn't speak English. I am. Okay. They're just taking over the feed. Bye. Okay. I'm just going to ignore you.
The best part is when I run this, I guess this is going to be the most heavily edited episode now for the actual show version, because the people listening to it on their podcast, people listening to it on their podcast are going to be like, are they drinking on it? She's just said she's 4 years sober.
No, don't edit it. Tell them we're on Instagram too. Make it easy on yourself. That's nonsense. That's what I do. I just we're running it on Instagram, so it's crazy on Zoom.
Yeah. That's actually, that's true. It keeps it even more interesting.
Yeah, that's fine.
I've gotten a lot of, I don't know if it's criticism, but I've gotten a lot of feedback that one of the things that I need to do to the show is edit it and produce it more. And the challenge with that is that's the exact opposite of what the goal of the show is. It's supposed to be an organic conversation that's not very produced. And I think we're probably going to do versions where we cut it down and put out little quick hitting kind of videos and snippets. But these, like, if we had scripted this or we had a list of questions or something like that, we never would have talked about what we just talked about. So
no,
because that probably speaks as much about like to be totally frank, if I were to script this conversation, I wouldn't have been like, well, I should probably put some talk about race on there. Never even would have thought of that.
Yeah, no, and like what I got I was on a podcast recently, and the dude sent me like 78 questions beforehand, and I said, do you want to pick 4, because I really talk a lot? And he's like, oh, we'll get through them. And I was like, oh, okay, no, we won't. But he was hell-bent and determined to get through those questions, and so like we did, and it was very stressful. Because I felt like at the end of it, I answered all those questions, but nothing came out of it. It was like, okay, everyone got a great bio of me. I'm kind of boring. So I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you grew up in a cult, if you can truthfully say that you're boring. I think that
well, my parents are going to be like, it's not a cult. It was a cult, but it's not a cult. Okay.
Well, I don't know this for sure, but I don't think your parents are big followers of the Boost Institute or Real Learning with Real People. So I think at least on this episode, you might have gotten away with it.
It's all right. It's all good. It's in my book. They've read it. Well, at least my dad read to page 122 and put it down and said, I'm not reading this anymore.
Fair. Well, hey, that's over 100 pages. Like,
I mean, he's not a reader, so it was good,
Yeah. I guess just before I wrap up, I want to touch on the leap, I guess, to write in the first place. We've had a couple authors on. We've had a couple people that are producers of content at high levels, like they sell their stuff like you, and people actually buy it, which is different than my stuff. And they all talk about those same kind of performance challenges and those same kind of performance blocks that occur. And I'm curious about you, because you write organically. So have you ever hit that? I don't want to call it writer's block, but something like that.
I have such a weird relationship with writing. I always wanted to be a writer, and I knew I wanted to write books, and I start to try and write fiction, and I just like lose my mind and cry, and I can't do it. I can't make up stories. Like I can only tell the truth, about what I'm doing. And so it's a crazy process. And I do get writer's block when I sit down to try and produce content. So if I sit down and I'm like, today I'm going to produce 30 days of content for my e-learning course that I'm going to sell for people. If you notice, I have no courses. None.
Yeah.
I've done programs, but they're live because I can riff. I can do this because I can't create content. Like, that's why I'm not making millions, because if I had, my time would have been perfect to do it. But I suck at it because it never feels like I'm telling my truth. It never feels authentic to me. And so I think when people sit down to try and produce content and they struggle, it's because they're not being authentic. They're trying to make money. And look, you should make money at what you're doing. You should. And I do. I coach one-on-one. I sit on Zoom with people, and that's how I make my money.
Can you see this countdown that's happening?
Oh yeah. Instagram's gone. We can restart. But yeah, Instagram's gone. Hold on. Let me turn this on.
That's a super funny ending, actually.
Yeah. Can you see this countdown? All right.
It said I still had 2 minutes left, but.
Such a liar. Well, make sure you save it.
Yeah. Well, now I'm just trying to find a cover image where my eyes are open and.
Oh yeah. Good luck with that. You'll probably have to edit this podcast.
And where your eyes are open.
Oh, I don't care. You can totally make me look like a fool.
Why did neither of us have our eyes open at the same time? I feel like that's the opposite of active listening. Yeah. I was that's actually so funny. That's going to be the way that it ends. Do you see this countdown?
And everyone's like, ah! See, you did it. It was fun. It was fine.
Yeah.
We did it.
I usually do ask, I have 2 questions that I ask that are actually like data points that we are using in the data collection portion of the show. Mm-hmm. The first question is not so much a data question, because it's just a chance for you to share where people can follow you on anything.
Yes, anything. So I am 10 years ago, I picked a username that I wish I hadn't. And now it's Swim Bike Mom. And it's too late to change it. I mean, it's technically not, but I don't really believe in a rebrand when it works. So Swim Bike Mom is my website. You can also find me at meredithatwood.com, but people find that hard to spell and they mistakenly look up Margaret Atwood, who is not me. Though I wish,
I did check for relation. Like when I first saw your stuff.
We look alike. So I posted on Instagram like 3 months ago because everyone calls me Margaret. I mean, without fail. Yeah. And I posted a side-by-side of us, and we have the same birthday too. What? November 18th. It's weird. And we look like I could be her very younger sister. Yeah. I don't want to say her daughter, but she's older than me.
Yes.
But anyway, Swim Bike Mom everywhere. My podcast is the same 24 hours. And that's available on all the platforms.
Cool. And the real data question is, if you had to give a concise, kind of tight phrase or two on learning and growing and getting better, what would be the advice you'd go with?
Don't be afraid of change. Go with your gut, and what your heart and your soul really want. Go in that direction.
Cool. I like that a lot. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I will do Instagram Live again. It didn't scare me away from it. I definitely need to get a mount.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what I do. So I have a pop socket on my phone.
Yeah.
And I just hang it on my computer.
See, I tried to do that with mine, but I think I don't have mine centered on my phone. I have it where it's the most comfortable. Yeah,
you got to center it. Well, at my other phone case, I had 2 pop sockets. I had one up here and one here. So I could so this one is perfect. And then
I just got my first pop thing probably about a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
You're still new. You're a pop socket version.
yeah, exactly. And I had never been willing to pull the trigger on it. And every time I use it, I get a little pang of jealousy for the people who made them, because it's like, you are millionaires and you hit one of those ideas. Like, because before I tried it, I'd look at everybody using it. I was like, wow, those are dumb.
No,
And then I finally had
everything.
a friend, and when I saw the price too, I was like, because in Canada they're like $5-6.
It took you that long? They're like $15 here.
And
I don't know what your bucks are. That's like $20 here, though, isn't it? I forget.
it's not 20, but
I don't know.
That really just shits on our economy. No, I think
I'm moving there. I'll learn.
We're like 74 on the dollar, I think. So
okay.
But yeah. So then I finally just bit the bullet. I put it on. I was like, oh wow, this is a lot easier. Like
it is.
And then the amount of times now that I've propped my phone sideways on the table. Yeah.
Yeah, just to eat and just chill.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. Now I need to get a different one because I just bought the first one I found, and it's like a space galaxy. That's
I think my daughter has that. I think that's the one my little girl has.
Yeah.
But you can get like a 5-pack. Well, I don't know what Amazon Canada has. We got a 5-pack on Amazon because we run through them.
I think we have 5-packs on our Amazon. I'm gonna try and plug them into the Boost Institute. I'm gonna make some Boost Institute ones and plug them into the store online.
Yeah.
I would love to distribute your book through our store, if that's ever a possibility. Or books, but it depends on where you're at in either of the deals. But I can do anything with it, honestly, on the store. And I'm trying to, now that we're just kind of diving into the marketplace thing now. And I'm trying to get a collection of a couple people that have been on the show and stuff like that. So it's highly relatable, but also stuff that's impactful. So it's not like, I want it to be a place where if you want a self-help book, or if you want to, not necessarily a self-help book, but a book that will help you with yourself. You're going to go to it and you know that it's actually good stuff. It's not just the self-help section at the bookstore. Yeah. Kind of thing. But we can distribute it and just literally be the link if you want. But we can also do electronic versions. We can do made to print, whatever. So, I don't know. So, I mean, I would have to talk to I could sell, because I don't want to ship to Canada. Oh, dear Lord. So do you want me to connect you with my publisher? Probably, yeah. That's what a couple other people have done. Yeah. So shoot me an email after this and I'll connect you to them. Because, I was going to be like, I'll just ship you. No, I did that once. It's like, I'll give away a book, and I didn't put it was in Canada. And the only people that ever win my contest live in Canada. And then it's like $44, out of pocket. I'm like, every time. I think you've got a decent following up here based on the people that I know. I do. And they're always like, come to Canada. And the whole time I was in Georgia, I'm like, I'm not going to Canada. It's like forever ago. And I was at dinner with some people in Boston, and I was like, everyone wants me to go to Canada. And they're like, it's like right there. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, it is. I can finally go to Canada. And I'm like, well, where in Canada? I mean, Canada's big. And so, I'm going to, I'll be sending you'll get the same invitation that everybody on the show will be getting. Well, not everybody, because I've had a couple total dickheads on the show, but the people that I want to be involved on the show will get, which is that where I want to host a conference that's essentially like, again, a conference for people who want help with themselves. But the speaker, that's the theme. So the theme is learning and kind of self-help, and we'll refine all that stuff later. Yeah. But our team is kind of putting it together to have a couple different authors, a couple different psychologists and psychiatrists. We're trying to we had, the episode's not out yet, but we have NASA astronaut on, and she was interested in coming, assuming that she's not literally in space at the time. And just kind of make it so that when you go to the conference, because as I'm sure you go to a conference and it's like the general conference topic and the keynote are probably what's interesting to you. And then it's like 2 days of just like stuff that isn't that interesting to you. And so I wanted it to be something where it's like, we literally can't pick a keynote because every session is too engaging to just have one of them be a keynote. and not have anything at the same time because of that.
Oh, that's so brilliant. Thank you.
Like, yeah, like it's,
Gosh.
see, multiple people have said how good an idea that is. And I'm like, it's not like, it's honestly just from me going to them and sitting in one room being like, see, all I can think about is the other room. It's impossible for me to focus.
Right. And try being a speaker. I mean, I've gotten invited to things and then I go and they, you know, stick me in the closet, you know, at the same time as the keynote. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I would not have come. Like, I would not have come. It's just so disrespectful. You're not even paying me, or you're not paying me enough. I'll go speak anywhere for free, but don't put me in the closet.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what our team kind of put together, is that like you do the hotel thing or convention center or whatever, but you just use the one main space. And you just, so it's, and my original idea was kind of like, we're going to do it the way that Tony Robbins does it, but not just one person talking. Like, music, and you'll eat in there, and you'll, and like that kind of thing. And then you'll, and different people will come up. And so it's not like if you came to the conference, you're either at the conference that day or in that session, or you're not at the conference. It's like, if you don't like the thing, like if they're like, oh, I don't care about this mom that did triathlons and that's all they know. Then they're just going to go they're going to leave. They're not going to go to the conference for that hour or 2 hours.
Right.
But if they, I think what'll actually end up happening is that you sit there for one, and then as it's ending, it's like, okay, we're taking a half-hour break. And then coming up after that is this person who did this, the same way that that TV episodes pop up on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And in 30 minutes we have an astronaut. And after that astronaut, we have this person. And so, like, I don't know, if you want to listen to an astronaut, then stay. But if you're too cool for that,
if you're too cool for an astronaut. Well, and you know, part of the role that I've done a couple of times is like, there's been a couple that I've been a part of where I'll MC it.
Yeah.
And I'll speak over lunch because I'm super lighthearted and goofy. So, you know, if you get down that part in the planning and you want someone to, like, I know you could MC your own thing, but if you want someone who's kind of goofy and, you know, I can fill those roles too. So
yeah, no, and
I'd be interested.
I'm much better at the MC thing with a partner. That's for sure. Like I like the give and take of doing it with a partner. So I think that, totally. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And I also think we were kind of playing with the concept too of like having, oh my gosh, sorry. He's sick. So he's not to, you want, no, you don't care. Okay. We found out yesterday that his liver's failing. So he's doing his best right now. He's only 1.5 years old.
Oh.
But we're going to try and go to the off-leash park in a minute here. And
yeah, he's like, Dad, I'm done.
Well, he hates when I do this stuff because it's like me and I'm talking and I'm engaging. And it sounds like, as far as he knows, it's at him because there's nobody else here right now.
He's like,
what? But yeah, so I'll definitely put you in. Well, I'll make sure that you're on the list because you're not one of the dickheads.
Yeah. Well, and I need to go to Canada. So it's like,
well, and you know, so I want to have it in Banff or Canmore, which is like, it's the Rocky Mountains.
Okay.
So it's out here. It is really far from you. Like, it's the West Coast, but it's like the beautiful part.
Yeah. What's the nearest, like, where would I fly into?
Calgary, like right here where I am.
Okay.
And you'd go direct. Like, there's direct flights from every major city in the States to Calgary. So
yeah, that's fine.
I've done
as
Boston
soon as we're open, I'm out of here. Like,
well, that's on you guys. Like, no offense, but that's not going to be a me problem on my end. It's going to be an America problem.
Everything's an America problem right now. What the heck? Yeah. So keep me in mind and let me know. I probably ought to go see my people now because I told them I was done like 30 minutes ago.
Yes, that's fair.
Even though I think you blocked off an hour and a half, I'm like, My daughter's like, where's my Wi-Fi? And I'm like, I'm talking about you.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm plugging you.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well,
I'll
thank you.
Yeah,
okay,
thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Make sure you subscribe wherever you get podcasts or to this YouTube channel to hear our weekly episodes.